Hello, and welcome to the Road to Retirement, the 2024 Retirement Webinar. My name is Frank O'Brien. I am a Senior Benefits Educator here at Wespath, and joining me today,
Todd Creviston. I'm a benefit educator as well.
Thank you for taking the time out to share with us, for us to share with you some critical information around the retirement process for the year 2024 and subsequent years going forward. Before we get started, there's some housekeeping to be taken care of. This session will be recorded. An email will be provided to all those who have registered that will include the recording of this webinar. The presentation deck that you see and that we'll share with you right now will also be provided to you as a .pdf document. On the toolbar of the webinar, there are also 5 PDF documents that are relevant and topical for today's webinar. Fellow educator Cheryl Hatcher is working behind the scenes, so please take advantage of the question box, not the chat box, but the question box, and Cheryl will do her best to answer your questions as quickly as possible. And if we do not get to it by the end of the webinar, we will print off the remaining questions and provide those answers to you by the end of the week. And as I said, an email will be sent. In that email will be the recording, some documentation, as well as a link to sign up for a one-on-one benefit education consultation. We also want to acknowledge before we get started that General Conference was completed last week and the new Compass Retirement Plan was approved. That new Compass Retirement Plan is targeted to be effective January 1st, 2026. A few things to note. Current retirees, there will be no impact on current retirees. There will be no impact for those who are retiring this year and retiring next year. And for those who are going to remain in ministry when Compass becomes the active employee retirement plan, their CRSP account balances will remain and a benefit in retirement will be provided. Another exciting topic that came out of General Conference is a new option that you'll be hearing about today for the Ministerial Pension Plan, the MPP 65% required amount for you to get monthly income. Right now it comes solely in the form of an annuity. You're going to be hearing about another option that's going to be provided to you. And for those who are already set and thinking about going into retirement, just wanted to let you know that at the end of this week, May 10th, our benefit access platform will be updated so that you can go back and take a look at what this new MPP option may look like to you. So you have time to go back and reevaluate any decisions that you have already made. So with that, we'll get into today's topics. We'll talk about retirement. We'll go through the 2024 retirement process. We'll go through each of the current provided retirement plans that we have. We'll talk about life stage retirement income. We'll recall with everybody the housing allowance tax exclusion, that tax advantage that you enjoy in retirement as well as in ministry. We'll highlight the death benefits and participant resources. As we always set the stage for these types of webinars when it gets to retirement, we always kind of put out some questions, some things you may have already thought about, be thinking about in the process of working through. Is now the right time or should I wait? Am I ready? And is my spouse ready? We often say that the individual who's going into retirement, it's a very exciting time, but we know that their life is going to be changing, how their weeks and days are going to be managed, if you will. And so that'll also impact the spouse as that individual will be around the house more often. Will I have enough money to retire? And that certainly is a key question. And hopefully today we'll be able to give you some good information to help you continue to think through that question. And then, of course, where will you live? And what will I do with my time? Some individuals will stay in ministry, go into volunteer work. Some individuals may just completely, get away from all of that and play more golf or go do more fishing, do more traveling, those types of things. So some combination of the two is probably how that will work out. But what will I do with my time? Coming back to retirement under the Book of Discipline and the provisions therein, we'll talk about normal retirement. Normal retirement is age 65 or 40 years of service. The word "or" being the important word there. If you're age 63 and you have 40 years of service, you can retire under the normal retirement provision. If you've only been in ministry for 15 years, but you're retiring at 65 or older, you retire under the normal retirement provision. And then there's the early retirement provision. This is age 62 or 30 years of service, or being the key word again. If you're age 60 with 30 years of service, you can retire at age 60 under the early retirement provision, but there are some considerations to the early retirement provision that we will share with you when we talk about the Clergy Retirement Security Program's defined benefit. There is a mandatory retirement age of age 72 and a 20-year retirement. It's a voluntary with 20 years of service. An individual can go into retirement with their annual conference. One thing to point out there is that to start to derive benefits from your employer-provided plans, you have to wait until you attain age 62, the early retirement age, to start to get your employer-provided benefits. But your UMPIP benefit is your benefit. You can determine by talking to a tax advisor or financial advisor how you might want to manage that account. And now we'll start talking about the 2024 retirement process.
Hi, everyone. So the 2024 retirement process, we have a checklist to help you. And the checklist has been put together so that you understand some steps that you could take leading up to retirement to make that a smoother transition. First up, if you're not registered for benefits access, we recommend that that's the first thing that you do, is get registered for benefits access. Because we like to say retirement or choosing your retirement benefits will go through benefit access. Next up would be to verify all of your personal information to make sure it's correct. Date of birth, social security number, address, phone numbers, email address, all of that you should verify. Do the same for your spouse if you're married. Make sure all of their information is correct. And then review your clergy service record. And all of this is available to you in Benefits Access. You can navigate to your clergy service record, view it as a web page, or even view it as a PDF. But it's important that you correct that soon if it's got an error. And then also verify your beneficiaries. Make sure that the beneficiaries match your will, because Wespath will actually pay out based on the beneficiaries in Benefits Access. So for those with us today that are retiring July 1 of 2024, you'll need to make your elections no later than June 28th at 3 p.m. Central. You'll actually see that little picture on the right-hand side. That's the picture of the account summary page, and at the very top there, you'll see that link and a picture. The gentleman, you could tell that he's smiling because he's squinting. He's smiling because he can go in and check his retirement, or check and select his retirement benefits. But that's what that page looks like. Next up is to understand all the sources of your income. And it's important to note that retirement is an individual process. So everybody will likely have different benefit amounts, have different plans coming in, and potentially different plans outside of Wespath, whether it's a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. So from Wespath, you have the Clergy Retirement Security Program, and then Ministerial Pension Plan, and then Pre-82. And these have been referred to as the mandatory plans. We'll have more information on each of these a little bit later. Then look at your UMPIP participation. If you're a couple years away from retirement, can you increase your contribution to UMPIP? What does that look like? Next up, for those who are married, what are your spouse's sources of income in retirement? And then what about Social Security? That's a big picture as well. And we hope that you can have already created your My Social Security account. You can go to ssa.gov, sit down, make a nice cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and work through that registration. Takes 5 or 10 minutes. I've had a number of conversations with participants over the years, and they said it was a pretty easy, straightforward process. What that will allow you to see are your Social Security benefits. What you'll receive at full retirement age, what you'll receive if you delay it, and what you'll receive if you take it early. So that is a great step as well. Now I'm going to pass it over to Frank. He's going to begin talking about CRSP.
Thank you very much, Todd. And I'll just echo the socialsecurity.gov website. And what surprised us, the more and more we began to ask individuals at seminars in the room how many people had signed up. And quite a few usually have signed up. So that's a very good thing to see, that people are starting to engage not only with the Wespath benefits, but with their Social Security benefits as well. So I'm going to begin taking us down the memory lane of the retirement plans. I'm going to start with the Clergy Retirement Security Program. Todd will talk about the Ministerial Pension Plan and hit on that new option for the 65%. I'll talk about the pre-82 and the UMPIP as well, and then we'll get into more topics as we move through today's webinar. So the Clergy Retirement Security Program, CRSP or CRISP. We love our acronyms in the employee benefits world, so these can go interchangeably. CRSP, the Clergy Retirement Security Program. And this is a very interesting program for people like Todd and I in the retirement world, because there's actually two plan arrangements baked into one plan. There's the defined benefit. That's on the left-hand side here. That's truly the driver of the plan. And we're going to talk about the annuities that you receive from the CRSP-DB, not a market-based plan account. But then there's a defined contribution account. That is an employer supplemental contribution account. It is an account balance. It is invested in the Wespath funds, and then you can either self-manage or use life stage investment management for those account balances. And we'll go through each. We'll start with the defined benefit. As I indicated, it is not a balance. It is a formula. So for those of you who on occasion look at your quarterly participant statement and you want to get a look at what your CRSP-DB account is, it's not going to be on that statement because it's a formula benefit. You can get information on the benefit on Benefits Access, but you do not see that on your quarterly participant statement. The formula is three components, three pieces that we multiply together that derive an amount that then gets annuitized based upon decisions that you make. The three components, the first is the denominational average compensation, or DAC or DAC. The second is a factor, either 1.25% or 1%. So when the CRSP plan first rolled out in 2007, the retirement factor was 1.25%. General Conference of 2012 reduced it to 1%. So that's why you see the two factors, and you'll see how they get applied. And then there is the credited service during the periods of time under the CRSP where the benefit is being accrued and calculated. Todd referenced the clergy service record. This is one area where you really want to ensure that your service time is correct as you're getting ready to start to take your benefits. The denominational average compensation, the words are kind of telling us what's going on here. We're looking at all full-time appointed clergy. That number of clergy that we looked at, we come up with an average. And for this year, the denominational average compensation is $78,292. The next is the factor. So for the time period of 2007 through 12/31/2013, the factor was 1.25%. But as a result of the General Conference decision in 2012, effective January 1st, 2014, we have the factor of 1%. And for today's webinar, for today's modeling, our examples, everything's going to be assumed to be a June 30th, 2024 retirement. So you can see you'll see that works out to be 10.5 years of service in that second time frame. The first time frame with the credited services, January 1st, 2007 through December 31st, 2013, full-time appointed clergy, 7 years if full-time. And again, in that second section there, 10.5 years full-time. And now we're doing the math. We are multiplying these three components together. You can see on both boxes, left and right, it's the same denominational average compensation. That's the $78,292. The box on the left-hand side, that 2007 through 2013 time frame, it's 1.25% is the factor. It's 7 years full-time appointed. We come up with a number, divide by 12, and we generate an initial amount of $571 per month. Now, the second time frame, we start with the same DAC. It's now a 1% retirement factor, 10.5 years full-time appointed service. We do the math, we multiply, we divide, and we come up with $685 per month. And then we add them together. The base amount of the CRSP benefit would be $1,256. But we're not done yet. You're going to have choices that you can make to determine the amount that you will receive in the annuity or as the annuity. Some of it is what kind of spousal annuity will you take? Or if you're single, what form of single annuity will you take? You have an option to attach an annual cost of living adjustment to the annuity. For the CRSP annuity, it has to be a minimum of 2%, but you can go 2, 3, 4, or 5% in terms of the amount that you want that annuity to go up. And Todd will explain to you how that COLA works throughout the calculation. And then early retirement. We'll get back to that again momentarily. There are some considerations around early retirement. So for the types of annuities that we have the 3 types of annuities that you can see there for a surviving spouse. We also have 3 single life annuities that Todd will share with you. Considerations around what type of COLA percent do you want to attach to that annuity. Your age and your spouse's age, health and longevity type issues, your health, your spouse's health, the availability of other sources or resources of income that can provide a benefit for you. So maybe you can get less now to get more later from these types of benefits. So these are considerations that you have in front of you. And then also early retirement. We have an example here of Reverend Wesley, who's retiring under the early retirement provision of the Book of Discipline. And if you recall, it's age 62 or 30 years of service. Reverend Wesley is going to retire exactly 2 years early at age 63, and Reverend Wesley does not have 40 years of service, so it is the early retirement provision. And as you can see here, the math that got done, we generated an amount of $1,256 per month. But under the early retirement provision of the Book of Discipline, there is a 0.05% reduction in the amount of the annuity you receive for each month of early retirement. So we made it simple here. So for 1 year, that would be 6%. For the 2 years that Reverend Wesley is retiring early, that becomes 12%. And we reduce the annuity, the base amount, by $151, and that has a net amount of $1,105 as the reduced monthly benefit. That 0.05% reduction, it's not a form of penalty or anything. You're getting paid out for a longer period of time. So we're looking at the benefit, which is getting paid out for a longer period of time, and we make an actuarial adjustment to that, similar to taking Social Security early. One thing I'd like to point out is if you do not necessarily need to take the CRSP annuity at this point in time going into retirement, you can defer making your election until you attain age 65, and then at that point, make your election to receive your annuity, and you will not have any reduction at that time. But you need to note that we're still applying your 2024 retirement. We're no longer counting months and years of service. The denominational average compensation for 2024 is what's going to get applied. So that's going to be how that works, but you won't see any of those reductions. And you can make the election any time between age 63 and age 65. In our example, you don't have to wait all the way to age 65. And this is a good opportunity to call an audible and call out EY Financial Planning Services, the partner that we use that can provide comprehensive household financial planning services for all of us at Wespath. So this is the type of modeling they can do for you to help you think through early retirement or taking it later on or at age 65. That's the CRSP-DB, the defined benefit, formula benefit, denominational average compensation, times the appropriate retirement factor, times the appropriate years of service. We generate an amount, and you'll annuitize that amount. The second piece is the defined contribution piece. This is an account balance. The way it is working now is employers are providing a required non-matching 2% contribution into an account balance in your name in the Wespath funds. And if you are contributing at least 1% to UMPIP, and we hope you are all contributing at least 1%, and more if you can. But if you're doing that 1%, you get an additional 1% matching contribution. So that's 3% that's going into that account balance. And then you have the option to determine how do you want to invest in the Wespath funds that CRISP DC. You can self-manage. If you're comfortable with our investment funds and the asset markets and all of those and you want to self-manage, you can do that. Or you can use a program called Life Stage Investment Management, where you're asking us to tailor and derive an investment allocation for you and manage that over time. And Todd will get into some of the specifics about Life Stage Investment Management momentarily. What happens in retirement? Well, it's available as a cash distribution. It will roll over to the UMPIP, but in UMPIP, that's really where your options and your flexibility live to receive your distributions in retirement. So you'll roll it over to UMPIP. You don't have to take it at all. You can defer it, and you can actually wait until you attain age 73 or age 75, depending upon your year of birth. And what's called required minimum distributions need to start to be taken. Basically, the IRS says you've deferred the taxes on this long enough. We need to see some distribution activity to generate a little tax activity. But you have the housing allowance tax exclusion, so recall that. And then if there's anything remaining in this CRISP DC account balance, it will go to your named designated beneficiaries. Now we'll move on to the ministerial pension plan, and Todd will lead us through that prior plan.
Thank you, Frank. So this is for service from 1982 through 2006. And the way it exists right now, in active service, it's an account balance. And it's managed using Life Stage Investment Management. When you apply for benefits, 35% of that account balance remains as an account balance. I know that sounds redundant, but it stays an account balance. That offers you flexibility because you, the individual, gets to choose when you're going to begin taking that distribution and how much. And you can change it over time. Frank talked about the General Conference of 2024 decision regarding the MPP annuity. There's actually two options now. The first option is to annuitize that 65% of your account balance, and you'll also select a cost of living adjustment, and then you'll receive monthly payments based on the annuity type you chose. The second option is to transfer that 65% account balance into your UMPIP, or United Methodist Personal Investment Plan, and then receive monthly payments from Life Stage Retirement Income. Life Stage Retirement Income calculates a monthly payment for you from your account balances. So you now have that second option. This will be available to look at for those who are, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but this is for everybody who is eligible to retire, will be able to see that in their account beginning May 10th.
Yes, that is correct. Not just those who are intending to retire in 2024, but anyone who is eligible to retire based on those provisions of the Book of Discipline.
Perfect. Thank you, Frank. Just to recap, that 35% remains an account balance, offering you flexibility on how and when to receive the income from that account. The lifetime annuity, there's 6 annuities to choose from, 3 single life annuities and 3 life and survivor annuities. The standard form of benefit for married clergy is to select a life and survivor benefit. That means a payment will continue on to the surviving spouse if the clergy person passes away first. There are 5 annual cost of living adjustment options. Frank showed that it's 0, 2, 3, 4, or 5%. And in this example, the payments would end when the participant or participants, in the case of a life and survivor annuity, pass away. Those payments would end. Option 2 is moving that 65% account balance into your UMPIP account and then taking a distribution through Life Stage Retirement Income. This will provide a monthly payment, a contribution to your bank account each month. You'll also be able to use the Social Security Bridge and Longevity Income Protection, which I'll cover a little bit later. If you're married clergy and you select this option, your spouse will need to consent to moving the money into that UMPIP account. And that the spousal consent needs to be notarized and returned back to Wespath. In this example, the remaining balance would go to the spouse or to designated beneficiaries. So it's nice to have options. You now have two. We're in the middle, almost the middle of May, so there's still plenty of time to have conversations with EY, still plenty of time to have conversations with your spouse to figure out what your plan will be. This table shows payments or payouts from a life and survivor annuity. So these are the three joint annuities. And these payments are based off of an MPP balance of about $400,000 and a 2% COLA. And what you'll see here, the annuity type is on the left-hand side of the screen. Each one of those annuity types begin with the term life. That means it covers the lifetime of the clergy person. The percentage, 70%, 85, and 100, that's the percentage of the payment that will continue on to the surviving spouse if that clergy person passes away first. So if we look at life in 70, payable to you would mean to the clergy person. So on July 1, you'd receive a payment of $1,209. If you were to pass away, the clergy person, $846, or 70% of that payment, the clergy payment, will continue on to the surviving spouse. Life in 85, you'll see that the payment decreases just a little bit, about $30 if my math is correct for the clergy person, but it's about a $156 increase for the surviving spouse. Life in 100, the payment the clergy person was receiving is the same payment the surviving spouse would receive, $1151. So those are the three life and survivor annuities. Next up, we have three single life annuities. Same format, annuity type in the left-hand column. All three of them begin with the term life, meaning it covers the lifetime of the clergy person. For life only, it's payable at $1,368. This is also a $400,000 account balance with a 2% COLA, and these are MPP payment examples. So $1,368. The next up, we have two other options that are interesting, life and 5-year certain and life and 10-year certain. And that certain, you can also swap out the word guaranteed. That means life covers the life of the clergy person. And with the 5-year guarantee, it means that payment is guaranteed for 5 years, for that term. If the clergy person passes away within that term, that payment will continue to anyone that they chose for a term of 5 years. So let's say retire at 65, pass away at 68, you pick the 5-year certain. That means that there's 2 remaining years left that somebody would receive that payment. They were designated by the clergy person. That individual would receive that payment for 5 years, and then it would stop. In the same week, a couple summers ago, I had 2 clergy say during consultations, Todd, I'm going to pick the life and 5-year certain because I'm helping my granddaughter and my grandson in college, and I want to make sure that if I pass away, they'll continue to get that financial support. So they both picked a 5-year certain. Now, let's say in this example, you pick the life and 10-year certain, retire at 65, pass away at 90, wonderful long retirement. That means that you've outlived that 10-year certain period, so that payment would end upon the passing of the clergy person. But definitely something to consider. The cost of living adjustment is the annual increase in your monthly payment. With MPP, you can select a 0% COLA and then 2, 3, 4, or 5 for both CRSP and MPP. They can also be different, meaning the COLA that you select for CRSP-DB doesn't have to be the same COLA for your MPP. The idea is to use these plans to personalize them to you because there's no 2 retirements exactly alike. So these options allow you flexibility to pick what's best for you. that COLA does impact that initial monthly amount. Bob Christoffel, the manager of benefit education, likes to say that the cost of living adjustment changes or impacts the amount you receive right out of the gate beginning the July that you retire. This slide does a wonderful job of explaining that concept. So along the left-hand side, we have monthly payment amounts. Begins at 6 or 0, but then goes up to 4,800. Along the bottom, we have age, beginning at 65, going out to 93. And then you'll see the legend on the right-hand side where we have different percentage amounts. Purple is a 2% COLA, that's the default. You'll see that that payment begins at 65, just under $1,800, and then goes up 2% per year. A 5% COLA would decrease that initial monthly payment down to about $1,200, but it's increasing at a 5% rate each year. So with longevity, a 5% COLA would provide the highest monthly payment, but it takes time to get there. And longevity is one of the things that you would consider when you're selecting your benefits. Next up is a 0% COLA. So you'll see that's the highest payment. But over time, that becomes the lowest payment because it doesn't go up. Early on, or several years ago, clergy would say, I'm going to pick a 0% COLA because I plan on delaying taking Social Security. So they would take a 0% COLA on their MPP, getting the highest payment, delay taking Social Security beyond full retirement age, increases your monthly benefit. So that's how they would make up for that difference. And then we do have two more options around that Social Security bridge a little bit later as well. So 3 and 4% are nestled right in there in line. So the higher the COLA, the lower the initial monthly payment. With longevity, it would provide a higher monthly payment. So things to consider, the two big things right off the bat. Should you annuitize the 65%, or should you move it into UMPIP and get a distribution through life stage retirement income? Next up, do you need the money at retirement age? Do you need the money the July 1 that you retire? I know this sounds like an odd concept. These plans are designed to replace a portion of your income, of your working income. But if you don't need the money, you could actually leave your MPP account invested with Wespath until RMD age, and it's either 73 or 75. I have a slide a little bit later that will clarify that for you. Earlier, Frank mentioned that's based on your birth year, and he's exactly right, and I've got a great slide to illustrate that. Another option, you could take that 35% of the account balance and wait on the 65%. And usually by now, I also like to say, these options are designed to give you ways to customize your income. Please don't let these options confuse you or muddy the waters. They're designed to be able to make it fit for you in the best possible way. Most clergy, I would say, roll that 35% into their UMPIP and then take a distribution. So that covers MPP, and now Frank will talk about pre-82.
Thank you very much, Todd. And one of the underlying themes that I'm sure you've picked up by now is that you do have a lot of options and flexibility and choice in terms of how, when, and how much income you want to derive from these retirement accounts. So that's a real strength in the programs that we provide. I'm going to continue on talking about what was the mandatory employer-provided retirement plan before 1982 and the ministerial pension plan came along. We call it the pre-82 plan today. I think it was called the Minister's Reserve Fund back in the day. And as you can see what's happening here, there's another theme. You have two things happening in CRSP, the defined benefit, the defined contribution. You have the ministerial pension plan, it's 65% and 35%. Well, within the context of the pre-82 benefit, you're going to see how we look at the amount of benefit we can provide for you in two ways, and then provide to you the greater of those two calculations that we will do. Once we have done those calculations, you will receive a lifetime monthly benefit payment, and the two calculations that we apply will be, one, your pre-82 years of service. So again, your clergy service record being correct is important here, times your annual conference past service rate. Each annual conference chooses their own past service rate. It does go up on a regular basis, maybe not every year depending upon conditions, but that past service rate does increase over time. Or we're going to look at what we call the defined benefit service money. Kind of a technical way of saying that the account that was contributed to when the pre-82 plan was the active plan, so accounts were being funded at that time to fund the future annuity election when the person retired. Well, those accounts have remained invested at Wespath in our funds through Life Stage Investment Management and have grown over time. So then we look at that account balance and we run it through our annuity algorithm to determine how we can convert that to a lifetime annuity. So we basically look at these things separately. This is just an example. This is not any particular annual conference. The individual has 2 years of pre-82 service. The past service rate for that annual conference is $700. Generates the benefit. We divide by 12. And you can see you get $116+ of monthly benefit. But that defined benefit service money, so this is a great story about the time value of money, has grown to a point where when we put that through the annuity algorithm and determine what we can provide, that amount comes out to $160.41 per month. Well, we don't ask you which of these two amounts that you want. We decide we will give you the higher or the greater of the two. However, as I indicated, the past service rate gets adjusted upward on a regular basis. So each year we redo the calculation. And if the amount, by virtue of the past service rate and those 2 years of service, exceed $160.41, we will revert to that amount and start to provide you that greater amount with other past service rate increases for the remainder of your retirement. Lifetime income, if you are single, it's single life, no refund. The benefit ceases upon your participant's death. If you're a married participant, your annual conference has another choice. What survivorship percentage do they want to apply to the pre-82 benefit? So it's life and those percentages you see there as the survivor benefit, 70, 75, 85, 100, and that's the survivor benefit. Just double check with your annual conference if you don't know offhand what that benefit may be. And your spouse for the surviving benefit has to be your spouse at the time you go into retirement at that time. If you're single, get married later, it still remains a single life annuity through the pre-82 plan. That concludes the discussion around the employer-provided retirement plans. We started with the CRSP, we will move through MPP, and then pre-82, that kind of walk down memory lane. Now I'm going to speak about the United Methodist Personal Investment Plan, UMPIP or UMPIP. Again, love our acronyms. This is the voluntary retirement plan. We hope all of you are taking advantage of that retirement plan. Again, that 1% gets you that additional 1% matching CRISP DC contribution, but of course we want and encourage all individuals to help supplement and fund their future retirement income. This is an account balance plan. You determine using these types of money source accounts how you want your money to be contributed into the plan, and it does get invested for future retirement income. This is a qualified defined contribution plan. It's a 403B. We always hear in the media about 401ks. In our world, it's a 403B. These are the two primary ways in which you can contribute money into the plan. You have the before tax and you have the Roth. And here the word's kind of helping us out here. What's the before tax contribution? The amounts coming out before any taxes are taken. So you get your monthly gross payment amount, and then you tell us on a percentage or dollar basis how much you want to go into UMPIP as before tax contributions, and we put that into the account. And then SECA, federal, and if applicable, state taxes are taken after that. So that goes in before tax. The contribution is tax deferred. The earnings on that account is tax deferred, okay? So when you start to receive income from the before tax contribution account, it all comes out as ordinary income. It's all taxable income. But again, We'll talk about the housing allowance tax exclusion, so not all of it will necessarily be taxed. The second is the Roth contribution account. I think we added that about 8 years ago. Here, this is an after-tax contribution. But the way it works is it's as if it's a before-tax contribution in terms of when we calculate and determine what we want to put into the UMPIP. So you get your gross monthly pay, you tell us on a percentage or dollar basis what you want to save in the plan, and we kind of hold that to the side, but you still have your monthly amount. Your SECA taxes, federal, state, maybe city taxes, all get applied. But then that known Roth contribution is provided into the UMPIP. If it becomes a qualified Roth account, when you begin to receive distributions in retirement, it comes out to you tax-free. For this to be a qualified retirement account, a qualified Roth account, two things have to happen. One is you have to be over age 59 and a half. It's a retirement plan. Most people going into retirement would be over age 59 and a half. And secondly, the very first contribution into the Roth account has to age up 5 years. So it's just that first contribution has to age up 5 years, plus you're over 59 and a half, it's a qualified Roth account. Okay, it's not every year's contribution or every contribution, just that initial one. And you can see on Benefit Access, if you look using the Roth account, if or when your account will become a qualified Roth account. So the tax considerations here, the Roth account, if you have it qualified, it comes out tax-free. With the before tax, it's all ordinary income coming out, but again, you have the housing allowance to support how the monthly income is actually going to play out for you over time. The UMPIP accepts rollover contributions. We really want to focus here on the top, okay? It accepts IRS qualified plans, so another 403B, a 401K, 457, governmental 457, and traditional IRAs. We have a process in place, and Cheryl, who's joining us today, manages that process where we'll provide for you an incoming rollover form. You complete that form, send it back to us, and we will manage and coordinate with the current holder of that retirement account a direct rollover into the UMPIP. And because we do that behind the scenes and you don't actually touch or feel the money, it's a non-taxable transaction. You will get a tax form, but that tax form will say this is a non-taxable transaction, okay? An indirect rollover means you've actually got that money from your employer. They had to withhold 20%, and you have that money. You can then send it to UMPIP. You can then true up that additional 20% to get it back to what it was originally with your prior employer. But now you've got administrative steps happening, and you've got maybe some loss of income because of that 20%. You know, they may not go cleanly for you. You have to true that up on your year-end taxes. So if that's the way that's going to go, certainly call our customer solutions area. But please take advantage of the direct rollover process that we have in place. A couple of things. You do not have to roll over your account before you go into retirement appointment. You can bring it in anytime thereafter. You have a lot going on. Maybe you didn't get to that. You can certainly do that. And secondly, we often get the question, can my spouse roll over into the UMPIP as well? And the answer to that is only if that individual is eligible to be in the UMPIP in their own right. So they have to actually be working for an eligible employer of the UMC and be working with a plan sponsor that has the UMPIP. A defined contribution account, the IRS defines for us on an annual basis how much we can contribute into the plan. We agree these are robust numbers. Certainly a lot here. We're already looking at retirement in less than 2 months, but we still wanted to share this information. This is the amount that you can contribute for 2024. The base amount is $23,000, and that's the before tax and Roth combined, so you can actually do both combined, but you have to hit the one limit. If you're over age 50, there's that $7,500 catch-up. That gets to $30,500, and then we also look at the employer contributions to make sure we don't hit that limit that you see there of $69,000. So we appreciate those people here who are getting close to retirement. May not be as relevant, but those individuals are still a couple of years away. You might be able to work things out in your household to take advantage of these contribution limits going into your final few years of ministry. Within UMPIP, and Todd's going to get into more explanations around certain distribution options, we have the distribution options available to you. Again, options, flexibility, choice. You determine how, when, and how much you want to receive. You can see that there are cash installments available. You want to receive monthly income to offset what you're not receiving now that you're in retirement. And there's 2 ways to do that. Life stage retirement income, where you're asking us to derive the amount of monthly installments for you throughout your retirement. Or you can self-manage your retirement income. You can self-manage your installment payments. You can set it up that you only want $1,200 a month, and then the following year you need $1,300, or maybe you don't need $1,200. You can go down to $1,000. You can always self-manage that if you choose. These account balances are your account balances. You can do a full lump sum distribution. We always caution full lump sum distributions because all of that has been taken out of the plan, and so it's not available for retirement income. And also a large amount may increase or get you to a higher marginal tax rate for that tax year's filing, and you can end up paying a lot more in taxes than you anticipated. And thirdly, if you take the money out and you roll it over somewhere else and they're not eligible to declare the housing allowance tax exclusion, and 99.9% of those types of companies can't do that, then there's another consideration you want to have if you're thinking about moving that money to another type of retirement account. You can do partial lump sums. This we see and hear about a lot because where will I live is one of those questions that you have when you're thinking about what's going to happen going into retirement. So we understand and appreciate that an amount may come out going into retirement that's going to fund that purchase of a residence or the moving from one state to another or what have you. There is a loan process in UMPIP. You can take a loan out in ministry. In UMPIP, you can still take a loan out in retirement. Anything that is remaining in these account balances will go to your named designated beneficiaries. So you want them in good working order so it doesn't go into your estate, go to probate court, take years and cost money to come out. And again, we hit on you can defer until the time when the IRS steps up and says you've deferred long enough, you need to start taking your required minimum distributions. Now we're going to spend a little time getting a little bit more into the life stage retirement income discussion, but I think first, Todd, you're going to talk about the life stage investment management program that we have and how they partner and work together.
Yes,
for life stage retirement income.
Yeah, thank you. We actually have two life stage solutions, and they work together. They're like cousins or brothers or sisters. They're family. They get along. So with life stage investment management, that will manage your account in active service and retirement. And what life stage investment management does, it determines or selects your asset allocation. So it will pick the funds and determine how much of your contributions go into those funds over time, right? From your paycheck and also from your other benefits. Next, it will also rebalance. So it's normal for your account to grow or drift. And there's a framework for that as well. So if that grows outside of your life stage investment management profile, then it will automatically sell high and buy low, which is what you'd want to do. So it'll reset your asset allocation as needed. Some of the variables that are used to determine your fund allocation are shown right there. Your age, your expected benefit commencement date, your risk tolerance. This is where you can provide input. You could say you're a conservative or a moderate or an aggressive investor, and that'll change your allocation. Another important thing that life stage investment management does, as you get closer to retirement, sometimes we refer that as a glide path, it will automatically or systematically move you away from or out of the equities and put you more into the fixed income funds, more into the bond funds. And then the other two factors would be the other retirement plans like MPP and the availability of Social Security. So all those are used to determine where your money is going and what funds your contributions are going into. So the goal there is to create that diversified investment portfolio. You've heard of the adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Life stage investment management will do just that. It will create that diversified portfolio for you. I mentioned that it rebalances your account as needed, and you can be used during active service and also in retirement. Life stage retirement income works with life stage investment management. Life stage retirement income does three things. The first thing it does, it calculates a payment for you. So it manages the distributions. It'll calculate a payment for you in a safety zone with a goal of providing a monthly payment for a participant and survivor's lifetime. The money that you've committed to the life stage retirement income payment will be managed using life stage investment management. So there's a lot here. First off, I like to point out there's no direct cost to participants for life stage investment management or life stage retirement income. You can transfer non-MPP funds, the 65% between the life stage retirement income and UMPIP at any time. You can add additional funds to life stage retirement income. Frank mentioned the portability of some of the plans out there, like a 401k, a 403b from a prior employer, or a traditional IRA can be rolled into your UMPIP account and then used in that life stage retirement income calculation. With the MPP 65%, that life stage retirement income, so first off, let's start off with the notarized spousal consent required. So for married clergy, if you plan on moving that 65% into your UMPIP account, meaning you're not going to annuitize it, you're going to put it in your account balance in UMPIP, your spouse will need to sign a consent form that'll also need to get notarized and returned to Wespath. But this 65% will provide monthly installment payments. And in this case, any remaining balance will go to the spouse or designated beneficiary upon the retiree's passing. So the second thing that life stage retirement income can do for you is to provide a Social Security bridge. So you're probably aware that the way Social Security works is if you delay taking that benefit beyond full retirement age, your Social Security benefit will get bigger. It'll get bigger by about 8% per year. So my full retirement age is 67. If I delay taking that until 70, that means that my benefit that I begin at 70 will be about 24% bigger than it would have been at 67. So there's some advantages to that. Then once you, instead of going without income, so if you delay taking Social Security, you're saying, Social Security Administration, I don't need that money right now, but you'll actually pivot to the Social Security bridge and receive what the amount that you would have received from Social Security from your life stage retirement income account, okay, or life stage retirement income payment. So you're not going without, you're just getting it from a different source. Your Social Security is growing by 8% per year. We talked about options. This is another option that might work for you. The third thing that you can do with life stage retirement income is actually purchase a deferred annuity through an outside insurer. You would do that at retirement. You'd pay for that from your account July 1 in the year you retire. And this is an annuity that's based on group insurance rates. Those payments begin at 80. So it's called a deferred annuity. That means that you pay for it in the July 1 that you retire, and those benefits or that payment would begin at a future date. And in this case, it would begin at the participant or the retirees when they turn 80 years of age. I like this example, this visual, because I think it sums it up very nicely. So in this example, you see life stage in teal. It's a rather tall payment, rather tall column. So that payment includes your life stage payment and the money that you're receiving in the Social Security bridge. So you're made whole there. That includes what you would receive from Social Security and what you would receive from that life stage payment. And then in this, at Social Security begins, so let's say this is at age 70, you'll see that teal section of life stage is now significantly smaller. The Social Security benefit has grown. So this is 70 years of age. So it's approximately 24% bigger than full retirement age. And then you're protecting that life stage retirement income account for the future. If you choose the longevity income protection, this is now at 80 years of age. You'll see the life stage payment or the life stage portion of that income is now even smaller, protecting that balance for the future. The longevity income protection begins right there at 80, and then Social Security at the top. So to work through this, is it right for me? Things that you can consider would be, do you have any significant health issues? What is your family longevity? My family longevity, we get to about mid-80s. My wife's family gets to about they're probably mid-90s, still playing pickleball. So my family is sitting on the sidelines watching them play. Because my wife has longevity in her family, that's what we're planning for. Have you opted out of Social Security? If you have, then the Social Security bridge wouldn't be available for you. Is there other significant annuity income that you might have? And one thing that you can consider, Frank talked about the rollovers, you can consider rolling over an outside eligible retirement plan into your, or account into your UMPIP to boost that balance for that longevity income protection, or for the life stage retirement income. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. So this is when you'll receive your first payment. So for the retirees retiring July 1 of this year, congratulations, that's a huge milestone. The first payment will arrive approximately July 8th. The reason for that delay is Wespath takes about 3 business days to run all the calculations and double check, triple check. So your first payment will land approximately July 8th. Going forward, in August of this year, and this is how it will be in perpetuity, you'll receive 2 payments per month, or 2 deposits into your bank account each month. The first payment is made up of the annuity or defined benefit payment. So MPP annuity, CRS-PDB, those will land, and pre-82 if eligible or available for you. That would arrive on the first business day of the month. And then the cash installment payments would arrive on the second or third business day of the month. So you don't have to worry about running to the mailbox and checking to see if the check is there. It'll get deposited automatically into your bank account of your choice based on that time frame there. Wespath is required to withhold 20% on a partial or full distribution, and RMDs were required to withhold 10%. Each year you'll get a 1099-R that will show the amount you received from Wespath, and it will also show the amount withheld for any federal taxes. Frank eloquently explained that a required minimum distribution is the point in time when the IRS becomes impatient and wants some tax revenue from you. So from the Secure Act 2.0 that was passed in December of 2022, it raised the RMDs, or required minimum distribution age, to 73 or 75. I have a clarifying slide that does a wonderful job to explain that. That second bullet point is kind of the legalese paraphrased from the IRS. So you need to begin an RMD no later than the April 1st of the following year after you turn 73 or 75. So if you turn 73 this August, that means you can delay taking your 2024 RMD until April of 2025. It's important to note that you'll still need to take your 2025 distribution in 2025. So that might bump you up into a higher tax bracket. There's still plenty of time to figure that out, and EY would be a terrific resource for that. Subsequent RMDs are based off of the December 31st balance. And then if you haven't begun the other benefits, you'll need to begin those as well. The MPP, CRSP, and pre-82 payments as well must begin at that time. So here is a new slide that does a wonderful job explaining this. So if your birthday is between 1951 and 1958, your RMD age is 73. If you're born January 1, 1959 or later, your RMD is 75. Wespath will help keep track of that for you and will notify you the amount of that RMD if you are in that situation. So now I'll pass it to Frank, and he'll review the
Okay.
housing allowance exclusion.
We have a few more topics that we will get through. We appreciate your time. First, we're going to start with the housing allowance. You're now receiving your retirement income and whatever choices that you made. In retirement, you are still eligible for the housing allowance exclusion, a great tax advantage or tax benefit that clergy retain. The way the housing allowance works is you need to generate three numbers, and it's the lowest or the least of those three numbers is what you can use in any given calendar year for that housing allowance. The first is, well, what was the amount designated at housing allowance? What that is, your annual conference. At annual conference, in the annual journal, every year says in the next calendar year, whatever a retired appointee from our annual conference receives as income from Wespath is eligible for the housing allowance tax exclusion. And we're going to send you a tax form to let you know what that dollar amount is. Then your actual expenses. You want to keep that number as north as possible. So it's not just the big ticket items like mortgage and interest or rent and renter's insurance and utilities. But if you go to the local Walmart and you pick up fantastic, include that receipt, include that on your spreadsheet. And then if you own your residence, what is the fair rental value of that residence, fully furnished, plus utilities in the neighborhood that you live? So it's a little economic market model that the IRS has you do. Here we recommend you go to a local realtor and get what they call a comp letter, a comparison letter, and have them tell you, a range of how you could rent your place. And then it is the lowest or the least of those three numbers. So, simple example, Reverend Waters received $24,000 in pension from Wespath. The housing allowance excludes the lesser of that $24,000. His calculated or their calculated amount is $20,000 actually spent on housing. Reverend Waters has $21,000 fair rental value for the housing, so it is the lowest or the least. So that is the $20,000 that comes off the top, leaving the $4,000 as the amount taxable. But please recall, that's the amount taxable going into your tax filing season with other deductions, exclusions, and credits that are available to all of us in the tax code. So that doesn't mean the remainder is necessarily all going to be taxed. It's available to all clergy. It's not applicable to the surviving spouse unless it is a clergy couple. There is a housing allowance exclusion worksheet. We have it on the toolbar. It comes in a lot of materials that we send to you on the back of that. On the second half of the fourth paragraph, if I'm thinking straight, there's some language that you can use and have your tax preparer apply to your 1040 filing. And then again, your conference journal handles that every year. The year you retire, rip it out, put it in your folder. But you don't have to worry about it. There's nothing for you to do. That happens over and over again as time goes on. In active ministry, you still have the death benefits under the CPP, which is the Comprehensive Protection Plan. You have that benefit articulated there. You can see it's $50,000 for the clergy person, and then there's a percentage of the denominational average compensation for the other three provisions there. If you, once you go into retirement to be eligible for the retiree death benefit, you have to be eligible for CRSP, and then enrolled in CPP for 12 of the last 15 years, or active participant in CPP for 25 years. So we're looking at two different time frames, recognizing the differences in time frames or duration of individuals' ministries here with Wespath. For the retiree death benefit, you can see the individuals on the left-hand side. For this year, the clergy receives if the clergy passes, the spouse will receive $21,400. The spouse passes before the clergy person, that clergy person would receive that $16,100. If the clergy person passes, the surviving spouse subsequently passes, then their named designated beneficiaries would get that benefit. And in the unfortunate circumstance where an eligible child passes away, then there's a benefit that gets paid into the clergy person or the surviving spouse. You can see that there. The General Conference that just completed, there were other legislative proposals or that got passed relative to the CPP plan. We will certainly be hearing more about that in the days, weeks, and months ahead. I just wanted to point out that we're not going to have to wait every 4 years to see an increase in the CPP benefit. There will be an annual indexed increase as we go forward. Again, more to come on that. And then we're going to wrap it up with a review of our participant resources. So Todd, then just know that there are a plethora of resources that are available here for you at Wespath.
I was just writing down plethora. I need to look up that later. I would imagine it's an enormous amount of resources, right? The first place you can go to is wespath.org. And I hope that you go to wespath.org to jump on benefits access, because that'll get you into the habit of going to wespath.org. Tons of information from daily values, fund descriptions. You can actually see a picture of the fund managers, all of that information listed there. If you go in and take a look at the equity funds, be careful, don't print out the PDF of the funds that, or the companies that are owned in the equity funds. They're very long. I made a mistake for that, and it was like 45 pages a couple of years ago. So I won't make that mistake again, so that's why I passed that on. Here's a picture of the retirement team, and then their phone number below. They work with each year's retiring class. They are super individuals. Don't be shy to ask them a question. They've probably already been asked it. They are a super group, and you can contact them there. EY Financial Planning Services, you might have heard them referred to as Ernst & Young. They shortened their name to EY a number of years ago. Wespath has had about an 18-year relationship with EY, meaning Wespath pays the fees for those planners to provide clergy, you all, with that great financial planning advice, recommendation, support. You can also go to EY Navigate, to that website right there, and set up an account, and you'll be able to use all of the tools within the EY platform. It is well worth the 5 minutes that it takes to set that account up. They're also available via telephone, and the majority of your experience with them will be through the telephone, because the financial planning will take place through the telephones, via telephone. It's also confidential, so if you're not retiring this year, you don't know when you're going to retire, you can actually rest assured and let your financial planner know when you're going to retire. They don't share that information with anyone. Some common questions: how much can I afford in housing during retirement? What will my income look like? Your spouse, if married, can also bring in their retirement income. They can talk to you about Social Security, so they can build that household income. What COLA should I choose? Is higher better, or should I select a lower one? Right? There's trade-offs with that. How can I secure a down payment for housing? Should I take a loan from UMPIP, or should I take a distribution? They can help you with all of those questions. You can also sign up for a benefit education consultation. These typically last a half an hour. You'd use that link right there. You'd select the time and date that's convenient for you. Once assigned to a benefit educator, they will send you a Microsoft Teams link, and that's how the call will take place. So it's wonderful. We get to see each other, we get to talk, we get to laugh, go through all of your different questions, and we do secure the call, so we will ask a number of questions to make sure that we're speaking with the right person. But if by chance there's so much to talk about that we have to make another appointment or another consultations, we can gladly do that. This is not a one and done. I think Bob, our manager, has the record of 9 consultations over 18 months. I'm looking forward to surpassing that record. But please take advantage of this. For us as a benefit educator, it's a great way to spend the day. So this is a QR code that if you scan, it will take you directly to benefits access. So if you're not registered, please do so as quickly as you can. If you are registered, please do the next step as well, and that would be to verify all of your personal information, and if married, your spouse's information. Okay? Check that clergy service record, look through your beneficiaries. When I do consultations, I also like to check beneficiaries to make sure that they are the wishes of the clergy person. And then schedule that benefit education consultation. It's a worthwhile 30 minutes of your day. So we are at the end. That concludes our retirement generic webinar. We thank you for your time today. And as Frank said, you'll receive a link to the recording, and then you'll receive a number of PDFs as well.
Thank you very much. For those who are retiring this year, congratulations. Please take advantage of those resources that you have just heard about, and certainly anyone on the call who has any questions, please feel free to set up one of those consultations. It really is our pleasure to hold those with all of you.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful rest of the day.